But I think there is something to saying, no, this is active rest. This is important. It's been difficult to kind of watch from afar and watch my family kind of change and not really know me anymore and me not knowing them. I want to see more diverse voices in this industry because there are so many more stories to tell. I wrecked that trumpet, by the way. Like, that thing went through hell with me. I don't know, it's fascinating. Like, what's the right size version of my life? Not judging yourself by the art that everybody else is making, because sometimes maybe you're going to be having a bad day. And I'm like, I'm not different. I'm just a dude who can draw good sometimes.
Lara interviews.
And Michael draws.
You're watching
BioPic.
For our first episode of BioPic, we have Max Ulichney joining us. Michael Relth right here, and I'm Lara Santos. And let's get started with this interview. So off screen, or off this recording, we were talking about quarantine a little bit. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of curious what your routine has been like, Max.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, and I'm honored to be the first guest, by the way. That's really cool. So thank you. It's always nice to talk to you guys, and especially, during quarantine. It's nice to like connect with friends and try to, make our efforts to be normal and social and, that kind of thing. It's been, let me turn that down. Sorry. I should be used to this by now, right? With quarantine and Zoom calls, I should know to mute all my things, but
you should just crucify you.
I just turned mine off.
Did I do it?
It's like we should know these things, but whatever. We're still human, right? Yeah. But I think quarantine's been weird. I mean, I've been I think a pretty good quarantinist. It's I don't love doing it. Nobody loves doing it, but it's a responsibility and you want to do it right. What I'm really frustrated by is Thanksgiving coming up and stuff. That sucks. I've been talking to my parents, and my mom especially is really kind of broken up about it. And that sucks. That sucks to be like, I'm not going home. I'm really sorry. They're in South Carolina, and my brother's in.
I thought your family was in Ohio. Did they move to South Carolina? Yeah,
my folks have been in South Carolina since, I don't know, it's been 12, 13 years or something like that. My dad teaches at SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design. Mm-hmm. And they moved down there, well, back then. And so they've been, in South Carolina for a while. And it's like my family's still, the rest of my extended family is from Ohio. We were all from Ohio, grew up there. But, so it stinks to not be able to I always used to have them out here for Thanksgiving a lot the last few years. And so it was always kind of like a mini vacation, kind of tour them around LA, go to a nice restaurant, and that kind of thing. Like last year we went to Rosa Blue, which is like downtown and kind of like a sketchy warehouse area, but it's this beautiful, beautiful place. I don't know. It's, excuse me. It's going to be hard, right? It's going to be a hard holiday season, but we'll make it through. And I'd rather survive this year and go see them next year and spend some extra time and, all that kind of stuff.
Quality time instead of contributing to the spread.
Yeah.
So I know that you've been doing a lot more cooking and making drinks and all this fun stuff. Mm-hmm. Besides, so I know you're also probably working on art because that's what you do for a living. But other than art, what else are you doing?
The drinks have been fun. I'm not a great cook, but I'm trying to get better. The drinks have been really fun just because it's it's nice to deep dive into a little subculture that bartending has always been kind of a mystery to me, and it always seemed intimidating and kind of this sort of black box, like a magic trick kind of thing. They have all these things in their head, and you realize and digging into it has made you see patterns, and I've learned histories of drinks, and American history is tied deeply into the spirits that we consume, and then you start to realize, oh, there's certain bars and certain patterns. I don't know, it's fascinating, and it kind of connects you to, and you realize a lot of these things were developed from medicines and then back when like medicines were all bullshit, just made up silly stuff. Yeah, well, the old fashioned, for example, what is it's bourbon, bitters, and sugar, and that was the way they used to take their medicine. They would you would add bitters, and it was thought to be kind of medicinal, and we just kind of got used to it, and it made it fun. So there's a whole bunch of just silly stuff and weird quirks of American history. for example, I'm not going to go too deep into this, but this is fascinating stuff. I just bought a bottle of Applejack. Applejack is it's like an apple brandy kind of, and it was one of the first spirits, I guess, that were distilled in the United States. And it's distilled from apples and all this stuff, like fermented apples, or I don't know, however they do it. But it was like it's Laird's Applejack, what I got, and it's like a 9th generation, one of the earliest American. It is the earliest American licensed distiller, which I think is really kind of cool. And like, that's, who cares? But it's interesting, and like I think it was George Washington asked the guy who invented this for his recipe, and he made it himself too. And like, the American presidents were often into distilling liquor, which I think is fascinating. Like, yeah, cool. Like Jefferson, I think, had is it rye or whiskey or one of those? I don't know. Or rum. Rum was really popular. I don't know. It's fascinating stuff, and it's been like cool to like treat yourself to like drinks and make it fun and be a good host when, you know, times are normal. But it's nice also to like, you know, I don't, just to like distract yourself with stories and things that are also something you can just enjoy casually too. You don't have to know the history, but it's fun to learn the history.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I mean, like, you know, I mean, I'm pretty sure you know that I'm like doing a lot of cooking and stuff, and I always think about that too, like how.
Your stuff looks so good too.
Thanks, man. I'd say come over and have some, but quarantine.
I know.
But yeah, like, it's so interesting to me, like when I'm like learning about different ingredients and like different cuisines, and just seeing that it's really just like the result of like just the history in it, like all the trade and everything, and all the like crops that grow in certain areas. It's just a fascinating history as well.
Yeah. Oh, the other thing I got into was coffee. So I started like early in quarantine. I was like, I'm gonna get good at like good proper coffee, because I've been doing the pods and things, and those are fine. They're convenient, and you know, I'm not like a coffee snob or anything. But it was like I started to get a little bit uncomfortable with the waste of it, and just you know, and it's also the quarantine, so I love to go drawing at cafes, and cafe sketching was one of the main things that I love to do. And since I couldn't do that, I brought the cafes to myself. So I got like a Hario V60 and subscribed to like, so I'm like drinking like Ethiopian coffee right now, and it's fun. So it's just something different, you know, like again, kind of getting a little bit into the subculture and nerding out on something that is just kind of a nice daily way to treat yourself well, I guess, you know.
You and Michael can nerd out about coffee since.
Hell yeah.
I love drinking coffee. I don't know that I know a ton about it, but
you know, it's funny. I was really intimidated by getting into it, because it feels like, oh man, it's just another thing I can spiral into, and like and kind of get too obsessed and snobbish about. But you know, it's not that bad. Like the daily routine is like 10 minutes. You know, it's slower, but it's not that much harder. You know, minimal cleanup. It's all fine. Like it seemed like it was gonna be like, oh, it's gonna be such a pain. That's fine. Totally fine.
Nice. All right, so one question I had when I was lurking and trying to study you a little bit for this interview. Sorry, that's kind of weird. Anyway, but I saw that you used to be like really into like Mini Coopers and like cars.
Yeah, sure.
I know you now have a Tesla, so are you still like into cars the same way, or are you?
A bit, yeah. It's funny. Yeah, my Mini was fun. I've always considered myself a kind of a car guy. Never been like super. I've never been like, due to like, you know, was working on engines or anything like that, or you know, like, but it's always been a fascination. I wanted to be a car designer at a certain point. Yeah, I almost transferred to be a car designer when I was in sophomore, junior year of college. My interests have always been like really wildly varied, I think, and kind of strange, and that led me to CG, because kind of condenses a lot of, or like has a lot of variety within a medium, or within, you know, doing car spots and doing character stuff and doing all the things we did, like in Elastic. It was kind of a way of like collecting a lot of interests and doing it in one place. And so, yeah, I was into cars. Like the Tesla's very different in the sense that like, I'm also like a techie nerd type. And so like that kind of like crosses those worlds interestingly. And it's also like a way of being environmentally friendly, and just my Mini has troubles and stuff here and there, but also like I lowered it and swapped out the exhaust and did a whole bunch of things to the point where it's like really fun to drive in a
Alright,
spirited way, but it's
Max.
but it's not fun for like road trips, and it's really harsh. But it's like fast and great around corners, and it handles well, but it's also like a pain in the ass and makes a lot of noise and that kind of stuff. So, I turned it into a car that's like less comfortable, and the Tesla is very comfortable, obviously. So, yeah, it's also just growing up and wanting something with 4 doors and a little bit more utility and just practicality, I guess.
Makes sense, yeah. I actually really wish I was into like what you were talking about. You're saying you're more into like the design and stuff and like doing like more like I don't know what the word is, like modifiers to your car. Like
Yeah.
But I really wish I was like into the like going under the hood and like doing I wish I could just be my own mechanic. I feel like that kind of car stuff would be so interesting to me, but I feel like I just don't have the time.
I want to buy a house just so I can have a garage to tear a car apart, and like just like destroy a car and like kind of like get like a terrible car that I don't mind accidentally ruining if I do that, and like just really learn, like go to school on like an old Beetle or something that's really easy to maintain. I mean, it's probably gonna rust out from under you before you can like fix it up, but like I do think there's something to like just having something that you can learn on and kind of deep dive on and obsess over that you don't care a ton about before you get into a thing that you really do care about. So
Max,
so like the stuff I was doing in my Mini was mostly superficial, or like minimally invasive, I guess.
I feel. Do you have like an addictive personality? Like you're talking about like diving into coffee, and then you're like talking about this car. Do you have?
I think I just have a really wide variety of interests. It's not. I mean, I guess the things that we're talking about do sound obsessive, but it's like but I'm not like going all the way. I'm not. I don't have my car up on a lift. I'm not like greased up and like wearing overalls and like like sliding under cars with like the little roller thing or anything like that.
Yeah.
Although I would love that. I love that fantasy of me of like just like like grease all over the place and getting like training my dog to like fetch me wrenches or something like that. That would be so fun. Like cartoon car guy Max would be really fun, but that's not me.
I feel like you can make so many cute drawings out of that too, or like animations. I feel like that could be a little story. Like
I really should probably make more of that, like kind of pull cars into my work. But it's like I have a piece that I really love. That's
plug.
I just realized it was back there, but it's all about like it's like a beach scene with a girl on this great old Ford. Oh, where is it? Is it at the end?
I love that piece.
Yeah, here it is. It's kind of buried in the scene, but like it's like this old weird pickup van thing. But I love that piece, and like I don't know. It was an excuse to draw the truck because I just really love that.
I mean, if you are into like cars still that much, you should totally incorporate it.
I really should do more of it. I like it a lot, but it's
I'd love to see that.
Just kind of never made it around to it. I have a list of cars that I want to draw actually, like
that's
scenes
cool.
that should involve a lot of cars. I should do that. I should make a series, but
Yeah.
haven't done it yet.
What would you call it? Like, I'm trying to think of
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know.
All right. Anyway, so going back to quarantine stuff, I'm just curious, like, how do you stay mindful of your time? Like, how do you, I guess, prioritize like yourself, or like find a balance between like working and doing, or finding a balance between like doing things, so like whether that's creative or like mixology or whatever, and prioritizing yourself?
It's funny. I don't think I've been doing a great job of it. I think I was doing better. I don't know, in the first like half of it. Because this is what, like mid-November now, and I think like through the summer I was doing a better job with it. I don't know. I think at least until recently, like the leading up to the election, like the month or two before the election stuff was weighing really heavy on me. It kind of like, well, I should. So I did Lightbox and launched a brush pack at the same time, and that plus the pandemic stress and everything else just like wrecked me. I burnt out hard. And so I like took a minute after that to just kind of like treat myself to like a little bit of free time and like have no pressure on me and stuff. And I definitely work better under pressure. Like that is something I know about myself. So if I don't have a schedule of some kind, or a deadline of some kind that I can, wait till the last minute on and attack. That I'm not great at like just daily discipline without. I think this is fairly universal, and I think this is true of a lot of artists too. But but it's been really hard for me recently, just because I don't have like project to sink my teeth into, and I definitely do better when I have something that I need to address, that I need to come after. And so like I've taken on like a charity thing and a little bit of freelance here and there, and that helps me a bit, but it's still like it's just hard to sit down and draw. Usually unfortunately that's like the first thing that goes. I'll do everything else, and then the drawing is unfortunately like the last thing that I do, and then it's like I'm tired and it's hard to build up momentum. It's been honestly a struggle in the last few months, so it's something I'm trying to really get better at and be more disciplined on. And like I really should schedule time, because this is my job now. I'm self-employed now, and I really should just get better at that. But it's also like inspiration is fickle. It's not like you can schedule inspiration, so I mean that's part of it. But I have a bunch of half-finished pieces that I could start finishing and just pick them off, because I've got like a dozen that I like that I just can't seem to sit down and work on, which is embarrassing, frankly. But it's it's the truth. It's something I got to work on.
Why is that embarrassing?
Oh, I just it's just, I don't know if it's embarrassing. It's just like this is what I do, and so like the fact that I'm having a hard time doing it is frustrating, I guess. Maybe it's a better word, but I'm just like I want to, like I think social media pressure is part of it. So you see these people like just rolling out sketch after sketch after sketch. I'm like, why can't I get into that rhythm again? And also like you have to remember this is a pandemic. Things are weird. The stress of the election, like I said, really got after me, and I just couldn't. I was like paralyzed. I couldn't do anything. But like just look at the news and pour over all that stuff, and you got to give yourself time to like, I don't know, take the pressure off, because I think it's unhealthy just to like expect. I'm not a machine. I'm not just like a person who just can sit down and make art constantly every day. I'd love to be able to do that, but like it just doesn't come that easily to me all the time. So it is what it is. I just got to recognize where I'm at.
Yeah, I was gonna say too that like I actually like really relate to that, and I'm actually like in the same place as you too. Like I tend to put myself kind of last. I tend to put like all the chores I have to do, all the creative things I have planned, all the responsibilities first, and then I'm like, okay, I'm a little burned out. All the things that I wanted to do for fun, I'm like, oh God, like this is gonna stress me out. And then I'm like, God, now I'm even more stressed because the things I want to do, I can't even do them. And then it just goes in a cycle. And
yes.
I think like the thing that's been like helpful for me to remember, which Michael also helps me to remember, is that like the creative things that you want to do don't really come about as inspired if you're not in a good place. Like if you're,
I think that's absolutely true. Yeah.
It's like what you're saying. You can't really force inspiration, and the times you get inspired are usually like when you're doing something that is relaxing or something where your mind is free. Like I feel like that's also why you have really good thoughts in the shower or when you're about to sleep, because your brain is like, I'm neutral. There's nothing to stress about. We're just relaxed. We're vibing here.
I definitely like. I one of the things that I've come to understand about. Well, I've changed the way I think about rest. I think of rest as an activity now, I think it is possible, and I would encourage people to schedule rest and schedule downtime, because I think it's really easy to underappreciate it and to burn out because they didn't rest and now they're just running on fumes. But also I think it gives you sort of like psychological permission to enjoy it more and to not like go, oh, I should be doing this. I should be, out doing whatever, or like organizing my closet or whatever, because like when you're just like sort of ambiently not being productive, it feels like you should be doing something productive. But I think there is something to saying, no, this is active rest. This is important because otherwise I will burn out. And this is an investment towards inspiration or just healing, or just like allowing yourself to not be a machine. And I think that's something that I really haven't been great about in the past. And it's hard still for me to do. It's hard for me to like sit down and play video games because I feel like, oh, I should be drawing or something like that. But I'm like, but that's, as much as I love making art, it is work. and I need to think of it as work, you know, and you know, sometimes it can be fun, it can be play, but like it's not always. And sometimes it's important to be like, I give myself permission to take today and do whatever the hell I want, and I will not be productive. As a goal, I will not be productive.
Yeah.
You know, it is, you are being productive at being restful. You know?
Yeah, that's actually a question I wanted to ask you. Like, I know that working at Elastic, that you stayed for like late nights and probably some weekends. And I know you, I mean, like you talk a lot already now, just making your own brushes and like doing conventions that you bring yourself out. And then I read that you graduated with the highest honors when you went to college, and that you took a lot of classes when you were there. Like you have this long history of having a really strong work ethic. So I'm just curious, where did you develop like that work ethic or that need to push yourself so hard? Like it was not only now, but also in college, and then also I know you had like a goal to be successful in like high school. So I just wonder how that all started.
You know, I don't really know, honestly. I think, I wish I could trace it back to something that I could understand it, but it's just something I've always been driven. You know, I've always been, I don't know if I'd call it competitive, but like, yeah, I mean, I guess in a sense it's been competitive. I just like, I think there was like, you know, I could point to it in art school or something like that, like transition from like high school to art school, you know, like you're kind of a big fish in a small pond in the sense that like you're the artist at school. You know, there's only a few artists at school, and when you go to art school, all of a sudden you are one of hundreds of artists, right? But I think it goes farther back than that. And you know, that was certainly like competitive, like the healthy competition of going to art school was fun, and it was challenging, and that really lit a fire under me. But even then, before then, it was, my dad was an artist, my mom was artistic too, my brother is creative, he's a photographer and all these, and a writer to an or you know, like has been in the past. I have a very creative, interesting, cool family, and I think that just sort of like helps you see the value in creating stuff for yourself. My dad was in galleries and museum shows, like group shows and things like that. And I think that helped me see it as a goal, but also I think I've just always been ambitious. I've always wanted to excel at whatever I put my attention to. I don't know. It's a really good question though, but because it's not something I can turn off. But it's also like, given that, I think it's easy to, being self-employed now, right? It changed. It changed. It changed my relationship to that, because like before I was kind of trying to succeed within a system, or I guess not when I was a kid, I was trying to succeed, you know, with art and things and just trying to get better. And I've kind of been thrown back into that. And so then now I'm trying to like, I'm competing with myself now. And yes, I'm competing with other brush makers, but I don't really think of it that way. It's not like, you know, it's not zero sum. You know, I respect everybody else who's in the game and trying to make a living for themselves in non-traditional ways. I applaud it. Anybody who can make a living and not just like grind on 9-to-5 work and whatever is something to be celebrated. And so I welcome everybody. But I think, but that's, so that has been a goal for sure. But it's also like, I don't know what success is. It's not money to me. It's time. It's the ability to like enjoy my life and kind of rebalance from, like you said, like I was working really hard hours at Elastic. That was difficult. So now success to me is making a living in a way that works for me on my terms, and not and not like selling my time for money and selling, because like I'll be real with you, like this is it. So I'm 39 now, and I wanted to have a family by now, or I would have thought that I would have had a family by now. And I don't see it necessarily as a failure, because like, you know, this is the path that I took, and it's all hypothetical to view it any other way, and I don't think that's helpful. But like, you know, this isn't the way I expected it to go, and so, you know, it's hard to say like, I don't know, to be. I definitely left something, or I wasn't prioritizing that end of my life, I guess, and it was hard to do that when I was working really, really hard hours. So now that I have the ability, like the pandemic hit and it's really hard to like chase down those new priorities, and it, you know, it is what it is. But like hopefully the new goal is to kind of like build a life that works for me and that you know, involves other people more than it has, you know, in the recent past, I guess.
Do you see that for yourself right now or for the near future? I mean, we're in a pandemic. Like you said.
Yeah, I think it's kind of on pause, honestly, until all this like comes back to normal, because I don't
Life right now in this pandemic.
it'd be like the idea of dating right now kind of stresses me out, just because it's
Yeah.
super weird, and you know, I have some friends who take the pandemic precautions as seriously as I do, and more so, and some who take it very unseriously, and that stresses me out like crazy. And so I wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable like inviting, like trying to date or whatever when I'm not sure what kind of precautions they're taking. I know that sounds so abstract and it's probably an excuse, but like I hear about people dating and all these different things. I'm like, wow, what are you doing? Like these aren't normal times. It seems so crazy. Like I listen to Dan Savage. Like, do you guys know Dan Savage?
You and Michael.
I love Dan Savage.
Love him. But he also has these stories of like people like hooking up at bars. And I'm like, that sounds insane to me. And I can't understand.
Wait, right now or like in general?
Yeah. Like
Right
during a
now.
pandemic, I'm like, A, going to bars, crazy. B, I mean, like, be one thing if you know, like, I don't know, feels like it taps into like Catholic guilt and stuff of like prudishness. Like you shouldn't, you know, take someone home right away. Like right now, I'm like rolling back into like, how do you like wait till marriage at this point? Or so like you gotta know like at least, or you know, like wait till like you know their COVID precautions. You know, like that's like the marriage version of my
The new STD. Okay.
Seems so risky. It makes me crazy. Like how could you enjoy yourself when you're like, I have no idea what's happening right now?
Are you gonna kill me? Like, am I gonna get?
Yeah.
I honestly I feel the same way too. Like, also I think I know like you and I have the same tendencies to like dig ourselves into reading about the news and like go down these holes. So I think maybe it's also like too much education or
Totally.
Education, but
Totally. But it's also like I would rather come in over prepared than in denial. You know, there's a lot of weird denialism right now, and it stresses me out, and it makes me sad, frankly, that people could be manipulated that way and lulled into a false sense of security. That seems dangerous to me. I don't know.
Yeah, our government is definitely handling. I mean, our present administration.
Yeah.
Soon to be out, which is great. Yeah, same.
Huge sigh of relief.
Oh my God, for real. Like I still don't have my guard all the way down because like obviously, you know, as of mid-November, he's still like, you know, he's still like tying himself to the furniture or whatever. But like, I just, you know, it's gonna be a struggle to get him out of office. But I'm like, they just called it officially, basically 306, and you know, it just feels good. You know, like it's like there's no leg to stand on. You know what frustrates me though? I don't want to make this super political.
No, go off.
But like that half of our country is still unconvinced that it's like a war of minds and misinformation, and that really scares me. That like legit scares me. It's one thing to like for people to have voted for him in 2016 is one thing, because I think that's kind of party momentum and all this stuff, and that's unfortunate but understandable in a sense. Nobody knew who he was going to be then.
A little bit. Got a little taste.
I mean, like I had a sense, you know, of course, anybody who was coming in educated and like, you know, and knew anything about him knew that he was just saying it to get elected. But, you know, fair enough. There are a lot of low education voters out there. But now, after 4 years.
Yeah, you know, actually, I agree that education has a role in it, but also, I mean, it's just me acknowledging my own classist bias too, but there are people who are just, you can be well educated and be racist. You can be well educated.
Oh, yeah. I guess the low education thing isn't so much like, I have no shame on people who didn't go to college or anything like that. That's not what I'm talking about. Who just like didn't know anything about him when they voted for him. You know what I mean? Like they just didn't really know his policies. He just seemed like a dude who was like
policies, like
yeah, like why do you need to know anything about the person that you're going to put in office for 4 years? I think there was a lot of that. There was a lot of like people who just didn't really know what they were voting for. That's what I mean. It's one thing to like, I you know, like I went to art school. I'm no genius, you know, like I just that doesn't make me like a political expert of any kind, but I just, you know, I at least knew who I was voting for and why,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
That's something.
That's crazy or wild times.
Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to like go off. It's just been on my mind a lot. Like winning hearts and minds right now is going to be so important because I just, you know, there's a propaganda machine that is hard to work around.
Yeah. I mean, also, don't ever apologize for going into politics. I feel like this is like the only thing I talk about if anyone would look.
Well, I know, but it's like also I want to be more interesting than that. Do you know what I mean? I want to like, especially right now, like all we've been talking about is politics for 4 years now. I want to like,
Yeah, that's true.
well, I think that's one thing I'm really excited about is that like Biden will not be on our minds 24 hours a day.
I don't have to know what he's doing like every other hour. I don't have to refresh and be like, what the fuck is happening now?
I think it's going to be really good for creativity. I think it's going to be really good for national morale. Even the people who didn't vote for him, I think ultimately will benefit from the fact that he's just not like in your ear all the time and stressing you out and like diverting your attention. I think it's going to be really good for productivity no matter what you do. I think it'll be good for people's mental health.
Yeah.
It'll be, God knows it'll be good for mine, but I think like I said, like I've been paralyzed for months. I've been having a really hard time drawing because it feels, I don't know, unserious in the face of, you know, global emergencies.
Yeah.
You know, and like I just want to be able to like draw cartoons and not feel like it's an indulgent silliness, you know.
Yeah, I mean, also on that too, like if it's a relief for a white man to feel like they can have clarity of mind, I mean, as a woman too, and a woman of color, like has like so much more weight too, and especially I'm light skinned, like I'm not darker or anything, so I don't have as many. I mean, I have my own privileges, so I'm sure it also means a lot to people who have really been directly impacted by everything he's done. Well, on that, let's pivot back to your work. I'm curious, like, what jobs have made you feel the most energized and the most proud to be an artist?
Man, you know what's really frustrating about this answer is that my opinion of it has changed, but I would have said we did the piece for the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, like a backstory thing. And J.K. Rowling wrote the scripts and everything else. And that was really exciting for me at the time as a fan of Harry Potter and everything else. And she took that away from me. You know what I mean? Like, it was for real. It was the proudest work that I'd ever done, I think, because it was a cool piece and it was great to be involved in that world and leave a mark on it as a fan myself. And then she turned out to be kind of awful. Yeah, and like that sucks. That's such a weird. I don't know. It really changed my view of that piece, and I'm still incredibly proud of it from, you know, in every aspect, really. But like, I can't brag about it anymore, you know, and I'm like uncomfortable putting in my portfolio, even though it totally deserves to be there because it's awesome. But it's weird. It's a bad feeling. So I don't like to talk about it because like she's attached to it, you know, because I don't like to put her in anybody's mind. She doesn't deserve the attention anyway. But like, there's also like some work we did for Riot Games, for the Harrowing. It was like a what do you call it? Like a special event or whatever. It was cool.
You guys worked on
that? Actually, was that your Michael? That was your first 3D animation experience, wasn't it? It was one of the early ones, right?
Yeah, it was one of my first professional 3D animation jobs.
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun. And
you took to it like it was no big deal.
Huh?
You took to it like it was no big deal. Like you made that transition like it was like, oh, whatever, who cares?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, man, that was a lot of fun.
That was a great job. I'm really proud of the way that one came out. But you know, like there's others, but like I think my proudest thing was just it's not something I can grab onto in the same way, but like people kept telling me that they loved working with me as an art director, and that made me happy. That was the thing that like made me truly happy. Is it's a weird role to be in, but like the fact that people wanted to work with me and that I was able to hopefully pull out people's best work and help inspire a team and like make something bigger than me was really exciting. And that's actually honestly been a struggle now that I'm self-employed. I don't have, a team that I can hang out with and work with and enjoy. And that's frustrating in a way. It's kind of a loss. And, it's a trade-off, right? I mean, it's a trade-off for sure, but like, as is anything really. But yeah, I was really proud that was kind of like the art director legacy that I built there. At least in terms of what people told me about it. And that really makes me proud, more than any individual project. The fact that I was, that people liked to work with me is a good feeling,
Yeah, totally. I mean, like it's one thing to have something that's massive on your portfolio or just share with people and say like, this is the big name that I worked with, versus making a real impact on people and capturing their hearts and minds like you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Like any commercial job, there's gonna be good and bad jobs. There's gonna be boring ones, there's gonna be great ones, and there's gonna be ones, like that are truly awful and punishing. And sometimes they can be all three in one, and so like it's really hard to pick on one job, because like I had a really good time working on some jobs that I'm not proud of, like visually or whatever. Like, there's some throwaway job, but they were fun to work on for one reason or another or something like that. I don't know. Every one of them was complex in a different way. We had some Ben & Jerry's jobs that I had a fun time with, because we just put in a whole bunch of like little Easter eggs, and like the process was really, really, really fun. I think they've held up pretty well. I like those. But like, I don't know. It's hard to like pick like a really big favorite. I've had a piece in so many different things, and it's hard to like, I would say actually my book is one of my favorite accomplishments.
Your own baby, yeah.
Yeah, just because it feels like it marked a moment in my life as I was transitioning out of, 14 and a half year staff job into being self-employed and being, like a full-time illustrator or whatever, or whatever this is I am now. So it feels like it was like a great way to memorialize a chapter of my life, so like that represents a bit of a totem for me that I'm really proud of.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm going to pivot back to politics again, because Ben & Jerry's made me think about it. So like anyone that knows you knows that you are
Knows that I like Ben & Jerry's.
Same. Yeah. Honestly, I think that's like the only ice cream we get.
Oh wait. Okay. Favorite flavor.
Mine's easy. American Dream.
I just finished a thing of that. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, American Dream is good. You turned me on to that.
It's so good.
Really good.
It feels good to support them.
Yes, it's one of those things. I'm so happy to like support businesses that stand up for their values. It makes me feel good.
Same. It's like I think that's also why I like to like talk politics with people. Like you were just saying about like how the most valuable thing to you, whether your work legacy, has been inspiring people. And I think, like that's why I want to have these interviews. Like I think what's more important than work is the person behind all that creativity and person. Like I have no care supporting something that I think is like really cool or really awesome if they participate in things that are so like just disgusting. Like their beliefs are so like oppressive and everything. So I forgot what I was saying. Anyway, I'm going to pivot to that question. So anyone that knows you knows that you're progressive and you support March for Our Lives, Black Lives Matter, other progressive causes. What's it like to be a white, cis, straight, I don't know if you're straight, maybe, right? Yeah. Straight man in an industry that is also very like dominated by white voices, and and beyond social media, like you post a lot about these progressive things and how you feel like on your Twitter and Instagram. Beyond social media, how do you engage in activism or combating really backwards views?
Yeah, I've done some like charity. I'm working on a charity book right now that is telling the story of kind of history of I don't know, what would you call it, of Black culture in America, and kind of like the before, middle, and after, or like where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. It's called The Art of Change. Unfortunately, I had to like back out, and then I've rejoined, and so that I'm happy about that, because it really broke me up. I was just too busy at the time as it was getting off the ground, but I've rejoined, and that's important to me. It was just like I couldn't give it the time it deserved, because it's not one of those things you can half-ass. You really need to like dig in and make sure you're treating it with respect. It's funny, the industry is, you can see the evidence of opportunity everywhere, and privilege and everything else. Like, look, I am definitely I recognize my privilege. Like you were saying, like, going back to like my first freelance gig was when I was like 14, and I've had a lot of opportunities because of my family, because of our position. Like we were like upper middle class, I guess, maybe, depending on how you grade that. My dad grew up really poor and fought his way to success, and I was the direct benefit of it. And that visible example of art can be a job, art can be, and you can have good success in it, and all these different things. And being able to do group shows, that is a luxury that not everybody is afforded. Like the ability to do personal fine art is something that someone who has to like work paycheck to paycheck cannot do, no matter how good of an artist they are. That is an absolute privilege. And my dad worked his ass off to get to the point where he was able to do that. And I, was born with that example and with the ability to, to not have to worry about where my next paycheck was going to come from, because I started young, because I was able to, see good examples and chase that for myself. I was able to go to art school, which is another privilege. That's, being able to pursue a career in the arts is not something that is afforded to everybody, or even viewed as a legitimate example. Excuse me.
Maybe that's where you got it, actually. Like I was asking you about your work ethic and where you developed it. Maybe it was just in your blood, your dad.
I think there's a lot of it there. And my mom's a teacher, and I think there's just like a lot of generosity of spirit that comes from my family, and a lot of examples of supporting a career in the arts as a legit, like, of course, why wouldn't you? You're good, you should do it, right? That kind of like, there was no like, maybe you should do something more practical. And so I think a lot of it comes from that, but I think like, I recognize that is definitely like, there are systemic roots to that. There's also like generational, you go back generations, there's not like that, my dad grew up in the 50s. Like life was really hard for Black families and people of color back then. And so like being able to like create a career in the arts was just like there weren't a lot of examples of that, right? There were kind of, barriers to entry. Hopefully we're making that change, and hopefully we'll see future generations having access to that more. But I mean, God, there's no question that it's been easier for white families to get into that industry. I donated, thanks to the success of Max Packs and everything else, I donated a bunch of scholarships to schoolism with Victoria Ying to students of color this summer, and that meant a lot to me. And I've since kind of spoken to their Discord channel and everything else, because it's important to me to try to pull other people up and give them knowledge and help them with anything that I can, to just give them a little head start, a little extra momentum, because it's like, I want to see more diverse voices in my industry. I've worked with some of my favorite people that I've worked with at Elastic were Black and minorities and people of color, because they understand what they have, right? It's not just expected to be given to them. They work extra hard, probably because frankly they have more eyes on them trying to bring them down in many cases, or there's a lot of expectation that they just feel like they have to rise to like just hit baseline, and that really sucks. And that, like, I've had some friends who've helped educate me too on what they've gone through and the struggles they've had, and like it breaks my heart, honestly, like that they should have to work so hard to achieve something that was like, I don't want to say easy for me. I've obviously worked very hard at everything I've achieved, but I definitely didn't have barriers in front of me besides my own sort of ambition and you know, it's been hard enough in that sense, but like for, I don't know, just for people to like, it just feels like it's not a balanced scale, and that stinks. And so I want to see more diverse voices in this industry, because there are so many more stories to tell. There's like so many interesting, like, you know, you look at like Spider-Verse or whatever is like an obvious example, and that's like celebrated or Black Panther, and like there aren't enough of those, and they're excellent stories, and because they come from diverse voices, and they, I don't know, it means a lot to me to see stuff like that doing better. And it's an example of like, why aren't we just doing this anyway? Like, why was there any difficulty in making this happen anyway? But like, it's definitely something that I want to see done better in my industry. You know, it really is. It means a lot to me too. Hopefully we'll get there, you know, but like, it's just difficult now. You know, there's so many things to change societally, and it's also echoed in our industry.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, also you were talking about that in your interview with Bobby, that was like the thing you were most looking forward to too.
Yeah, in the animation industry, I mean, we've had the same sort of old white men voices in the animation industry telling stories, and you know, it's I'm very excited to hear other stories, to hear other perspectives, to hear other experiences. So yeah, I totally agree with that.
Like working on this charity book, I'm thrilled to do it. I'm excited about it, genuinely excited. But I'm also like slightly uncomfortable by, you know, like a white person depicting Rosa Parks. Like that's hard. Like, 'cause it starts to feel like, but it's also like, I'm an ally, I'm an advocate, I want to do better, and it's important to me to put that out there, and like, why shouldn't I? But it's also like, and it's demeaning to say, oh, you know, a Black voice should be doing this, because like, it's not as if this should be, because that feels kind of not discriminatory, but it's like, it's not like only Black people can depict Black stories. I'm sure they can do it more authentically than I can, but I'm trying to do my best to rise to the occasion and treat her story with respect. So I'm, you know, doing a lot of research to do that. But you know, it's you know, it just is what it is. Like we need more Black voices in the industry, and I think it's important enough to me to be an ally, at least. I don't want to take anybody else's job, but like, it's also like, this is a story worth telling, no matter who's telling it, you know?
Yeah.
I'm also curious, you can't really generalize like anything or anyone like you, but Ohio is a red state, and you grew up in Ohio.
It was very purple when I was growing up there, actually.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's red now, but like when I was there, it was flipping back and forth constantly. Every election, it would flip back and forth. It was a swing state then.
Huh, well, I should read more about that time period.
I mean, look, it's definitely, you know, just like any state, the cities are blue, and then, you know, surrounded by a sea of red. I went to school in Columbus. I grew up in like between Akron and Cleveland. And so I never really felt like I was in like a rural area, but we were not far off from rural. You know, like there were a lot of, like there were like horse stables not far from my house and stuff like that. That's, you know, like, it was funny, after moving here, going back to Ohio, it felt like, oh my God, this is like way more rural than I realized growing up.
Around all the buildings and everything.
Yeah. It was a beautiful little historical town that I grew up in and stuff, like Bicentennial Town. It's like the ultimate white picket fence dream. It was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. But it was also like, I don't know, it's in Columbus, for example, super progressive city, like very, like one of the highest proportions of LGBT community, like it's really, really awesome, diverse, like cool, progressive community. It felt a lot like the San Francisco of Ohio or something like that. It was really, really cool. And it exposed me to, it like opened my eyes to a lot of stuff. And it was just a really, really awesome town to go to school in, because it was like right at the time I was like, God, I was feeling kind of like, I don't know, like a little bit cooped up by it. Yeah, some conservative voices, and also like, you know, you're kind of like trying to figure out who you are amongst a lot of that. And going to art school in Columbus was really cool, because it like, I was like, oh, this feels like me a bit, or this feels closer to what feels authentic to me. And so it's just nice to like, you know, have a lot of like liberal voices, you know, and this is during Bush's administration. And so I got to like vote, or, you know, vote against Bush at least right before I moved out to LA. So I was, you know, he still took it in 2004, but it was
a popular vote, right?
Yeah, I no, I don't remember. I think it. Yeah, I don't remember, honestly. He may have actually won the popular vote the second time. I think because it was like right after 9/11.
Oh right, and then everyone was feeling.
Yeah. And he also started a war, and everybody loves wars.
Bush to 9/11.
It's super fun. Wars are super fun.
Yeah.
Let's take that quote out of context.
Dude, wars are the best.
No, he did lose he lost the popular vote.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
There you go.
Learn something new every day.
Yeah. But yeah, Ohio went red, like right, and they were the deciding swing state, basically. One of them, right before, in 2004, which was frustrating.
Well, actually, yeah, I want to talk a little bit more about Ohio because we all know about your life being an LA artist. Like, what things do you miss from Ohio? Like, what parts of life do you miss from there?
No, I miss my extended family. We had a lot of cousins, and like my mom was one of 6 kids. My dad was, one of 4. We just had a lot. Like we really mostly hung out with my mom's side. My grandmother's Italian, and so like we always had like just the best Italian. She's a great cook, and baker and stuff. Just like the sweetest woman. And my grandfather was incredible too. And it was just like we would have these huge family get-togethers at our house and their house, and I miss that. Like coming out to LA is definitely like it's a sacrifice because then I'm not seeing my cousins and their kids grow up. Like a lot of my cousins were of the age they were having kids right as I was moving out here, and they're like adults now almost, or like they're teenagers. They're full people, and they were like tiny little toddlers when I left. Like they don't know me at all, really. Like maybe a few times, and that's it. It stinks. Because like especially growing up in such a big family, everybody was like essentially, with the exception of a couple, aunts and uncles and cousins, they're almost all in Northeast Ohio, and so yeah, it stinks. Like I don't know. It's been hard kind of watching a lot of that from afar. And also, like, I'm not on Facebook anymore because fuck Facebook. And but it also the sacrifice of that is everybody's on Facebook. All my family's on Facebook, and so I can't really keep up with them as well. Yeah, it's been difficult to kind of watch from afar and watch my family kind of change and not really know me anymore, and me not knowing them. It's difficult, So that's hard, and also like my family being in South Carolina, or my parents being in South Carolina now, it's like when I go to see family, I go there. I don't go to Ohio that much. It definitely stinks, Yeah, but it's also like the town I grew up in changed a lot after I moved away. And so like going back to visit was sort of hard. It got nicer in many ways, but like a huge shopping center built up behind like the main street. And it used to be this like small, sweet little place. And now it's like this bustling kind of thing. So it doesn't feel the same. It's great. I'm happy for the town, but it just doesn't feel like the place I grew up in the same way. Yeah, I don't know. It's that kind of thing where you can never go home again, right? It's just like, it's always gonna be forever frozen in my mind in a certain way. And it's just, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't know you were in marching band. That's so funny. What did you play?
Yeah. I played trumpet. With my dad's trumpet, actually, because I played trumpet because my dad played trumpet, and I played it on his trumpet, and I wrecked that trumpet. By the way, like, that thing went through hell with me. I'm so careful with my stuff too, but man, I bent it and dinged it and broke it a few times. I slipped on some wet grass and like went down hard on the bell, and it like twisted a couple times. I bent the bell one other time. I was hard on it. And like I'm so careful with my stuff too. It's the only thing in my life that I've really kind of basically destroyed. Um, and it was also important to me to like not do that with that trumpet because it was his, you know, it was his childhood trumpet. Like I still remember him like teaching me how to play it when I was in like 5th grade, I think is when I started. And he was about the same age when he started. So I mean, this is, you know, that was like 1960-ish, 61 probably when he was playing. So like that trumpet was awesome. You know, it was like, it was important to me to not destroy it, and I completely destroyed it.
What did he do when you broke it?
Oh, I think he didn't.
You falling.
He was. I think he was definitely upset. But I mean, it's, you know, it is what it is. I didn't get like screamed at or anything like that, but it was definitely like he was not thrilled, clearly. But you know.
So, I mean, clearly you don't have a trumpet anymore. Do you play any other instruments?
I have a couple guitars that I haven't really played in a while. I played guitar in high school just for fun. Like took lessons and stuff, and I got okay, you know, basically. And I played it in college, I guess, too, a little bit, but I never really made anything out of it. I performed once, I think,
Cool.
publicly, and that was whatever. It was fine. Yeah, it's always been like an interest, but not like a passion. It was something that it was cool, and it's a good way to be creative in a way that wasn't just directly related to art, but something I enjoy. It's something that I just got my guitars repaired actually in the beginning of the year, just like, you know, clean them up and get them ready to use again because they were, you know, hadn't used them in years. So I've been meaning to go back to that, but you know, we'll see. It's another thing that I can get obsessed with and go too deep into, right?
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
You and Michael should play together. I wonder what that would be like.
Yeah.
You were in a band. Or were you in 2 bands?
I was in a couple bands in high school. Yeah.
That's awesome.
But, I mean, that was punk rock, so it was all power chords. Like if you could play a power chord, you didn't actually need to know how to play guitar.
That's true. That's true. Well, it's funny. Like it's kind of like that. You know, just enough to like make it work for what you need. And I think there's actually a bit of that in art that I think is you know, there's a parallel in art with so many different things. Like you only need to learn as much as you need to make like a good image to communicate your idea, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Totally.
I kind of want to talk about your dad more a little bit. Like you mentioned, your whole family is creative. Like your dad worked at an ad agency, and your mom painted a little bit too, right?
A little bit, yeah. She was like every once in a while I'd come home and she'd like have broken out the pastels or something like that. And we had a couple paintings of hers up around the house. She used to like do these beautiful kind of like 1-to-1 scale butterflies, and they were really beautiful. I think were they like colored pencil mostly, maybe some paint. I can't remember exactly, but they were very intricate, beautiful little things.
When's the last time you played with played with like kids art supplies, like colored pencils, crayons, markers?
It's funny. I do frequently actually because I'm
really?
doing well, like because I'm, you know, making brushes all the time, so I'm constantly like breaking out all my weird little art materials because I'm replicating them in some sense digitally. So I get to like kind of scribble and play and do that kind of stuff in a way that when you're making art, you're much more like deliberate about things, and when you're making brushes, it's much more about like the way a kid would just kind of like do stupid scribbles, because like that's instructive and it kind of helps you understand, because that's what a kid's doing when they're drawing. They're not necessarily always trying to depict something really carefully. They're learning the rules of how to make a mark with a thing, in the same way that as they're learning language, they're making sounds and then they turn into thoughts eventually, in the same way that I think that's how a kid makes art. And so it's helped me kind of tap back into mark making for play and just for the sake of mark making. It doesn't really come through my art necessarily because it's not really what it's about, but it's because I have other ideas for that. But like it has been fun to just like scribble and push a medium to like figure out what does it do if I do this, and like that's kind of exciting. It's sort of like a little bit sciencey, a little bit like experimental in a way that you don't really have a reason to do otherwise. So it's been kind of fun to learn that way, and also again to deep dive into study and to like go into how do gouache painters paint for editorial stuff, because I have to replicate not just like, this is what happens when you make a brush stroke do this. I'm like trying to replicate, how has this medium been used in the past? Like, not just like, because digital art is a little different, at least making brushes is different, because you're trying to like fill a need based on how it has been used historically or something like that. Like, so this retro pack, I'm not to plug it, but I'm plugging it, I guess, accidentally. But like,
Sorry.
but like,
that'll just be the intro.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like it's been kind of, you have to kind of understand how it's been used in the past in order to like make a brush that will enable people to use it in similar ways. It's just fun. It's interesting. It's also because I'm interested in the history of art, because of course I am. But it's given me a reason to like deep dive into more of like the culture of like Disney in the 50s or something like that. It's cool.
Okay, so you're an artist, but then you're also like a businessman, creating your own brushes and like supporting yourself on that. Like, and it seems, I don't know, knowing this artist, sometimes that there's more of like the right brain going on and less like organization and everything.
Yeah, a lot less.
But for you, it seems like they're like pretty level, or at least like 60-40. How have you like cultivated that like left brain side, or how do you do it now?
Yeah, I think it's always just been it's always been there, I think, to an extent. I've always been like pretty analytical in that sense. Like, because I worked in CG for a long time, and that's a very left brain activity. That's very technical, and I've always been into learning software and that kind of thing. Because I was using Photoshop at like 13, 14. And so that has always been kind of a funny, it's always been there, that balance, like that analytical versus creative thing has always been there. I think, sometimes to my detriment too, because it's hard to like loosen up sometimes. But I think mostly to the, it works for me, I guess. When it comes to like the business stuff and like trying to figure out how the hell to like build up a thing, it kind of happens slowly. I sort of like, it wasn't like a goal of mine to like be an entrepreneur or anything like that. It just, but I'm kind of learning it piecemeal, as I needed it. This year was a really heavy investment in a lot of that stuff. So it's been a crash course on a lot of that kind of thing. But a lot of it was just sort of, because I worked in ad agencies since I was 16 to 23. That was like my summer and internship and freelance gig. And so it was, to the extent that like marketing or basic kind of like the business of art, it was, has always kind of not been super far from my experience. And so I was able to kind of like intuit a bit of success that way without having to like really go like super crazy on it. So it's hard to really say, like, I kind of just, I know enough from agency work and kind of like just, I don't know, seeing how other people have done it in the past and what I would have done differently and what I liked about what they did. So it's just kind of like, it's worked out, I guess, but I wouldn't say that I'm any kind of genius about it. Like, I sort of just try by error, really. So
yeah, I mean, what other way to, you can't plan every single thing.
No, but I was also lucky. I mean, there's a ton of luck in it, like some, I think I make a good product. But also like it took off when I wasn't great at this. I had some good intuition, but like some nice people really helped me out and promoted the brushes when I needed it the most. And it kind of took off, and that enabled me to sink more time into it because it felt like I was getting a return on the, on the work I'd put into it. And so the more work I put into it, the better the product got. And it was sort of like just, gain momentum. And it was like, oh, this should be, I can make this work. I can do this as my job, because like it, surpassed my, my staff income, last year, I guess. So it was like, oh, this would be silly not to, and at a certain point, it sort of costs you money to have a staff job and not have enough time to put into the thing that's making just as much money. And so I was like, oh, it's breaking over. So I need to like quit this so I can put more time into this and build something bigger out of it.
Makes sense, yeah. You are creating brushes and making your own art and illustrating and everything. What would you do if you weren't doing anything related to art?
Yeah. Would you count like photography or anything like that? Like how?
Something that's completely not creative.
Not creative.
Yeah.
You know, I'd love to work on cars. I think that'd be really fun. I think or like carpentry or something like that. Maybe that's creative too, but I think I love to. So like, my YouTube feed is all just like people working with their hands. It's all like makers and it's creative, right? But I'll watch all the kind of like Top Chefs and Project Runways and things because I like watching people perform their craft at a high level because there's a lot of creativity in it. So I'm probably skirting around the edge of your question, but I think I think with any high level craft there is creativity in it. I don't think there's any job that's like fully free of creativity, but I think that's the kind of stuff that I love. Like I would love to have a wood shop in my garage and like build things and work with my hands and like learn how to weld. And I don't know what I'd make necessarily, but I think it'd just be really fun. Or work on cars and do that kind of thing. So I think that kind of stuff, like working with my hands, would be really cool.
Oh my God, you're like saying my dream. I want to build my own house from like the ground up. I want to build my own car, and I would love to like make my own furniture. And I feel the same way. Like when I'm watching people cooking, like I'll just like binge watch like professionals cooking, and it's so interesting to me to like watch them with their like different knife skills or like the way they do things. I don't know, just yeah, I feel you. It's very interesting.
You know who I've been like kind of obsessing over recently because I think I see a bit of myself in him, or vice versa.
Babish?
Is what?
I was thinking Babish.
Oh, I like him a lot. French guy cooking, Alex, French guy cooking.
Mm-mm.
He's really cool. He's like half chef, but he's or cook, I guess, but he's a maker. So he'll like build crazy tools and like 3D print like pasta machines and hack ovens to make the perfect pizza oven. Basically, like take the heat limiter off so you can get like kind of a proper like stone oven kind of heat out of like a thing.
You can set your house
I
on
know,
fire.
honestly.
Oh no, completely. It's super dangerous. But the dude, he's like very analytical in the way he approaches things, and he's very much kind of an outsider trying to like speed run knowledge, and I love that about him. I just think he's super fascinating, and he's really his YouTube channel is incredible. I think it's French guy cooking or Alex. I can't remember which one it is. Super great channel. And also his like filmmaking is on point. He's really clever and fun, and just like I love the pace. But he goes and interviews experts and chefs, and like his current thing is he's diving into like mother sauces.
Yeah, I see it. He's doing I'm on his channel right now.
But I think you'd love it. It's like kind of all of my interests rolled into one in many ways.
That's
and
cool.
I'm fascinated by it. Yeah.
Yeah, people.
But also like filmmaking has been a bit of an interest recently. You're watching me on my nice camera. Because like I'm trying to get into tutorial videos and like painting videos and things, but I've also been like taking the camera out and like it's not listed, but I made a little video that I was using to test out the camera and like shooting some like slow-mo B-roll montages and stuff around Glendale where I live. And it's just been fun. I went downtown on Saturday when they called the election, or when the morning they called the election, kind of, but I guess. And I filmed like a little bit of a party downtown just for fun, just to like be a part of something, and also just to like use the camera and capture it and that kind of thing. So I think a lot of being on set and a lot of like cinematography and it just, this industry is it's such a cool combination of craft and creativity, and I have a lot of respect for it. I am no kind of expert on any of this stuff, but I really enjoy that a lot. And so it's a nice way to like kind of keep a foot in production, keep a foot in kind of like where I came from with CG and filmmaking and directing to be able to like, play with cameras and shoot stuff here and there. It's been nice.
Does your brother ever give you tips? Because I know he's into.
He's a great photographer. I think if I'm perfectly honest, I think I know more about cameras because of CG maybe than he did, but he's a much more intuitive. His photography is way better than mine, no question about it. But I think he kind of intuits his way through it, which is totally valid. And I've taught him a little bit about some of the technical aspects, I guess, just because like that was my understanding was more from a technical place, because I was reverse engineering cameras and cinematography and in much that in that analytical way that I can't help but do. And so that was like, that's how I come to that stuff. It's, like it's always kind of like to serve the project rather than to like go out and shoot things randomly. And so I'm learning his role and he's kind of learning mine. It's funny, that's the way our entire relationship has been in many ways, is like we were kind of like night and day as we like in like high school, kind of like as we got older, we were like kind of like very different and we probably frustrated each other quite a bit. Like brothers, classic thing.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know because I don't have any, but
Yeah. But as we've gotten older, we're like becoming the same person, sort of, almost, or we're like getting closer together. Like, yeah, it's fascinating. We had I don't know. It's hard to explain. We just kind of like, I think have gotten a real appreciation for how we approach things differently, and like we've both kind of softened on a lot of things. Like he was much more like fun and in high school for sure. I was much more of like a rule follower, like nice. Like I don't know. This is not to imply that he wasn't like the nice kid, but like he definitely had a lot more fun, pushed a lot more boundaries, and I was the rule follower, boring one. And I think as we've gotten older, he's gotten more mature, and I've questioned a lot of received wisdom and like loosened up a lot, if that makes sense. And so I think we have different paths, but it kind of led us to a similar place, which is interesting. I don't know.
Did he ever do anything like super stupid and reckless when he was younger?
No, he just had. I think he got to the point where he was much more rebellious than I was, and I think, I mean, he maybe he did. If he did, I didn't find out about it necessarily. I'm not thinking of anything in particular. So but I think he just understood like that you could push boundaries, and I was like, boundaries are there, like for reasons. It's so boring, but I definitely didn't I didn't loosen up for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think a lot of that comes from just like, from religion and like being a good Catholic boy, So that's frustrating now because like I was like, but that was, you learn, you live and you learn, and I think the transition out of religion was really important to me at a certain point, and I think I wouldn't trade that because I think it taught me the value of skepticism and thinking for yourself in a lot of things, because I was always doing that even if I was a good rule follower. I was always like, yeah, but why?
Yeah.
But I would still follow the rules, but it was like, well, why?
Yeah,
Can you tell me why we're doing this? Because I never quite understood it.
Same. When I mean, even now, but same. Like growing up, I was the exact same way. Like I did everything. I was like, I can't like break these rules. They're here for a reason. I'll get in trouble and stuff. But I was always like, why am I doing this? And like the older I got, the more I was like, I'll only do the things that I think that fit with me. But I'm still very much so like let's follow these like set protocols to make things. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I had a question. You said that you grew out of like being like a rule follower, like that. This is kind of related. My experience in college was like very like I worked a lot and I didn't I followed the rules a lot, and
that was me too. Yeah.
I didn't get like the college experience where you're like partying a lot. So I guess this is sort of very tangentially related, but like, do you feel like you missed out in college? Because I feel like I missed out in college.
100%. Yeah.
Like a lot of social experiences and stuff.
Yeah, I definitely feel like, I think I think society gives you permission to be a real fuck up in college and get away with it, you know, and encourages it to a certain extent. And I definitely didn't take advantage of it. Or, you know, just like I think that is such a moment where you're supposed to kind of question everything and experiment. And I don't want to say get a lot out of your system, but kind of really figure out who you are.
Yeah.
And I think I came to that really late. Just because, you know, for the same reasons. I was kind of a rule following kid. But I was also like working really hard at art. I was passionate about taking as many classes as I could because it was like, it felt like a narrow window where I could improve my skills with the greatest help to do it. What I didn't realize is like I was going to learn more in my job than I ever would in school to a large degree. So I didn't necessarily have to squeeze it all in. I should have taken less classes. I should have had more fun. I should have given myself permission to, I don't know, just play and have fun and get B's and C's. Like I graduated summa cum laude. I did not need to do that at all. That didn't benefit me in any way that I can put my finger on. But I know there were times where I like said no to fun things that like I regret saying no to. But like I didn't need those extra classes and extra study and all those things that like I value my experience. Like I said, I don't think hypothetical like what ifs are all that useful. But like, yeah, I mean, if I could time travel and give myself advice, that would be one of them. Like take a couple less credits, have a little more fun. It was weird. I just never really like pushed boundaries that much. I didn't really drink until I was legally able to drink. I didn't really like smoke pot much until it became legalized in California. Like, you know, I experimented, I had moments, but like I was never like a rebel, you know? This is weird. Very strange.
Well, like, I mean, on the right side of those things, I mean, it's contributed to you really having like a more whole look at like the way you're living life now too, with like being like, okay, like I really have given my like whole youth away, and I feel like it's just more of like more of a reason for you to be able to give yourself self-care and time to intentionally be unproductive and everything.
Yeah, I think it's given me a bit of clarity as I've gotten older, and I can having just distance on the stuff. You know, it's funny. I think I would, so I don't have kids on the horizon. But like, it's given me some clarity on how I would raise a kid. Yeah. Like if I guess to say is if I could see my kid turning out like I did, I would want to intervene and be like, hey, take less, but take some pressure off yourself, have more fun. Like to my parents' credit, I think they tried a few times and I was just stubborn and it's, you know, every kid wants to, you know, it wouldn't have felt natural to me to like be told to have fun, right? You can't like force that. You can't force someone to go outside their comfort zone, but it's definitely like, I have loosened up and I wish I had loosened up earlier in my life or took some pressure off myself. Because it's just not super important to like excel as a kid. You know, if you're going to try to get into Harvard or something like that, yeah, you need to get those A's. But also, like, why are you trying to get into Harvard? You know, like, I think there's so much pressure that I didn't go to Harvard, by the way, just for clarity. But like, I think there's so much pressure that kids have to like be adults before they're adults, and I definitely put that kind of pressure on myself.
Yeah.
And which is super ironic as a, you know, for a life as an artist. Like,
I know, yeah.
That's crazy, you know. It's important to understand that in the same way that like active rest is a thing in my life now, or I'm trying to make it more of a thing. I think balance, work-life balance, which is what that is in a sense, you know, is so important to like counteract all the working hard with enjoying yourself too, you know, and that's true. And I think, you know, even given the, you know, the sacrifices and the everything that got you to that school, you're not supposed to be there just to like just get A's only. Yeah. You're there to like enjoy and learn about yourself and enjoy your classmates and like, you know, have life experiences too. And I wish that was culturally more acceptable to be like, hey, like have some fun, you know? Because that's a skill, it's a pattern that you establish early in life, you know?
Yeah. That's like two things on that. Like, I think that's also just so ingrained in American culture where we're like, capitalism, feed the machine, push yourself, drill yourself into the ground. give it all for work. So it's hard to like not think that way when that's really the culture you're steeped in. And then the other thing is, actually I forgot it, never mind.
Well, I feel like having, now that I'm self-employed, this is not something that was like a goal necessarily, but I'm thrilled that I have it because it's allowed me to kind of like question a lot of the ambition, or at least like the shape of the ambition that I've had, to find success outside of a system, or at least on my terms, and kind of deprogram ladder climbing and
which you did.
Just, I mean, yeah, like it's so hard to figure out like what your values are personally. I know it's such a weird thing to say, but like, you exist in a system that doesn't necessarily have your best interests at heart, and that you're expected to like the American kind of like work ethic is something to be proud of in a certain sense, but then like travel has taught me too that like, Europeans get like a month off and they're healthy and they don't work, more than like whatever 30, 40 hours a week, and they're happy and they're like doing great. I'm like, oh wait, we can do that too? Because like if they can do it, maybe I can do that for myself. Maybe I can, orient my life in a way that gives me something like that, that still is success. And maybe that means that like, I don't want to say that I lower my ambition from like from a professional point of view, but like, why do I want such and such role? I don't know, it's fascinating. Like, what's the right size version of my life? What is the value of my life? Is it professional success? Is it raising a family? Is it all these different things? And honestly, right now, I don't know the exact blend of all those things for me. And it's hard because like, I don't have to like struggle right now, which is amazing. But it's given me a bit of a crisis of like, what is right for me? What's the next step? What does my life look like here? Which is great. I mean, like this is a very good problem to have. Don't get me wrong, but like, it just means like I wish I had come to this question way earlier, way earlier, because I think I could have made some moves to find the path better.
Maybe that's how you figure it out, by doing more of the nothing. I feel like trying to figure it out more and trying to like sit with it, or maybe not sit with it, but trying to like work your way towards these goals so much makes you a little bit blind to what you really need.
Yeah.
Maybe just
so like I don't feel like I'm racing. Like I've been saying no to certain jobs to give myself time to think about like, what do I actually want out of my career? It's weird. Like I've said no to jobs that I would have said like were my dream job. They were like industry, like studio animation jobs, and like that's exciting. It's really genuinely exciting. I want that to be a part of my life, but I also don't want it to be a full-time part of my life, because it would take away from Max Packs. It would take away from pursuing things that are just for me too, so it's just very strange. Like it's just a maelstrom of like questions and thoughts that I haven't really found the path yet, but I'm getting closer every day, I think.
I think I only have one more question. Cool. And it's something we touched on earlier, and just, you are an artist, but behind that you're just a person, you're a human being.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the people that know you for your platform of like 100,000 plus whatever followers. Mm-hmm. What's something that you wish people asked you more of, or what's something that you wish people actually knew about you, instead of them asking more art-related questions or typical questions you get all the time?
It's really interesting. Social media is such a weird incentive. I'm thrilled to have an audience. I'm thrilled to have followers and all this stuff, and it's really exciting. But it's also like I get frustrated by artificial incentives to make my work, like outside incentives to make my work. I want to have authentic personal reasons to be making the art that I'm making without trying to like feed an algorithm in many ways. I think I get frustrated because I get a lot of questions about like, how do you grow online? And I'm not even like, I have 120,000 on Instagram, and you know, I it's great. It is, but like there are people with like millions, and I think there are people who just want fame. And look, I'm not knocking people with millions. Like it is a job. That is a serious accomplishment. But I get questions about people like, hey, how do you grow online? And I'm like, why do you want to grow online? I find that question so frustrating because it has changed my relationship with social media in a way that is conflicting. Because it's, to the extent that it's great, it's also a real challenge. And it also takes up a bigger and bigger and bigger part of your life. To maintain the network and to like be available in a way that is generous, but also like respectful of my privacy and my time, because it's really easy to kind of let it run away and become too big a part of your life. But also like just I get treated weird. Like I get treated like a mini celebrity, and that's a little bit uncomfortable for me because I'm nobody. Like I'm just an artist who's trying to get better at his art and trying to like enjoy a hobby / job. And I don't know. I think we're all guilty of like parasocial kind of relationships and deifying our heroes and stuff. And I'm guilty of that with many of the people that I follow, that I hold up as like examples of like excellent artists and stuff. Actually, just before we did this, as I was sitting down, one of my heroes liked a post of mine, and that's bizarre. But then I have to check myself. I'm like, they're the same thing though. They're just another artist trying to do their thing and like navigating social media. They just have like they just have credits, and I've got more followers than this guy. And it's no reflection on the quality of my work over his, because it's certainly not true. A friend of mine was saying recently, and I was laughing about, like, for real, like, this sounds like such a crappy brag, and I really don't mean for this to come off this way, but I'm regularly getting followed by some of my heroes, and that is like, it's honestly kind of difficult to understand because it's like it checks my imposter syndrome, which is very real. And then I think to kind of come to terms with the fact that like people I respect, people whose opinions I respect, think that I'm worth following is really challenging. And it shouldn't be challenging. It should be like just thrilling, and it is. But it's like it makes me face something about myself that I'm not proud of. So it's just kind of a funny. I don't know. It's a thrilling thing, right? It means that I'm on the right track. It means that like I should maintain some kind of momentum with what I'm doing, but it also means like it helps, gives me perspective with what other people are going through and what other people have achieved with their work. It means that like they're just people doing jobs, and they happen to have some notoriety with the way they do it. I don't know. I think that's a really good thing to check on yourself, is like, why are you holding this person up, and like, why can't you do this? Because they're not different from you. I think that's really cool. But it is a challenge. I mean, it's a challenge to understand that about your own work, because it's like the only thing in your way is you. And how much of you do you give yourself up to this, to social media pressures and to being available and things like, small example, that Michael, you understand, and Lara actually too, like the Discord server was a really fun thing that I did for Lightbox. Had like a whole chat room for the Lightbox weekend, and I left it open. But I'm kind of uncomfortable with just being that available, because I don't think it's healthy. And I don't think having like a bunch of fans with easy access to you is necessarily healthy either, because it sort of supports this idea that like you deserve it. And it's not that you don't deserve it. That's certainly not it. But like, I think there should be healthy boundaries. For your own sake and for theirs. I don't think it's useful to have like, I don't know, a room full of people kind of like with easy access to your brain, because I think you want to be able to turn it off and like not feel like you're not living up to something. I think it's important to like have some distance for yourself and have some respect for your time and for your own privacy, and just that is so crucial in a world that is loud, with tweets and Instagrams and all these different things that you're maintaining. I think that is a much healthier version of it, at least for me. But I'm getting a lot of comments, I'm getting a lot of things, and I'm kind of like maintaining that as like a second job all the time. And so I wish people like would treat me like I'm not special. I really mean that. Like I want them to treat me like I'm just a dude on the street in many ways, because they ask weird questions, they kind of bust boundaries, people act really unusually in the face of someone who they think is different. And I'm like, I'm not different. I'm just a dude who can draw good sometimes. Like that, I'm not special. Like I love that people think that I'm interesting enough to follow. But I hope that they think of me as just a person who's trying to get good at something and not like, not works by different rules, if that makes sense, Because I think just the way people approach you is just like, is if you're not just like a person with feelings,
I think people.
Yeah, totally. Like sometimes people, they look at your work and they get so caught up in what it means to them and what and they forget that you're a person with feelings and fears and wants and desires, and they forget that they're just like you because they're so taken with the really cool work that you do.
Yeah. And it's really lovely to have people like admire the work you do, but I wish they would just admire the work and like ask you questions as if they're just like meeting you for the first time and wherever they are, instead of there's sort of this implicit like holding you up on a pedestal. And I wish I'm not that guy, like it's going to a light box and stuff, like people like approach me like they're starstruck and I'm like, don't do that. Like, that's crazy. Like, don't do that at all, please. It's weird to like, 'cause it becomes hard to connect with them, if they think that you're different from them. It's like, I'm nobody. Like, thanks for liking my work. I appreciate it. But like, let's just talk, it's cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to put into words without sounding like you're complaining, I guess. And that's not, I hope that doesn't come off with how I'm trying to view this,
No, I don't say that.
Because it's a weird thing to like, I don't know, because there are some people who like fight like crazy to get the follower count that I have. And I'm like, that's not why you do it. You should have a healthy relationship with your work and want to share it. This is supposed to be about how do you find people to connect with your work authentically. You don't want to like be performing your art for other people,
I think that's also the thing about, social media is like great in so many ways. Like you can connect with friends that are across the world and everything, but I don't think we were really meant to be this connected to everyone and to have people stream their thoughts like just like directly to you and like have everyone's judgment and thoughts and love and everything at such immediacy. I think I don't know, like when was social media even really invented? Like so many years and decades of being humans without being this connected suddenly to having access to everything and all the news. Like I think it's just too much. Like I think you're right. Like you need to be able to set boundaries and to be able to be like, this is my own thoughts. These are my own personal things in my space that you don't have to be indulged in and everything.
Yeah, and I want to be a good host. I want to like do Q&As and YouTube videos and Instagram stuff and things like this, because I think this is better because we're talking like people, and hopefully people can see us as just like, this is just fun. We're just like enjoying connecting on a human level. This is great, I think it's important, again, like active rest, to like have active rest from all things, like a healthy relationship with all things if you're able to, and that means like not just waking up and doom scrolling Twitter, and that means, not judging yourself by the art that everybody else is making, because sometimes maybe you're going to be having a bad day, and maybe the stuff in the world is like too hard to make art today. And God knows that's been the truth for me for, a lot of this pandemic. It's been hard for me to make art. It just has.
Same, man.
Because, like cafe sketching was such a big part of it. Like it's to not have my security blanket, not have my preferred way to work has been difficult. It's been really difficult. So it's like, I want normalcy for so many reasons, but that's one of them. It sounds so like not important, but it is important to me because it's a way of like observing reality for me. It's a way of like filtering my world and kind of falling in love with my town and where I'm going. And I don't know, I just think it's a fascinating, it's part of what my work is not just like cool shapes and fun colors and lighting and brush strokes. It's observing real people doing real candid things and understanding, it's kind of like what a photographer might do or something, or a documentary filmmaker might do. But for me, I do it with, caricature or whatever it is, but like, there's depth to it. There's human connection to it that may not be obvious to everybody else, but it's important to me.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just trying to think of like solutions. I feel like you could do some semblance of that by going to like a more populated place that is not like a restaurant or anything, but I feel like you could go to like a park and bring like a coffee and like just draw people from there from a distance. But I know it's not the same. But
yeah.
I was thinking about that. Like, it could be really fun to have like a sketch get together on the weekend where people go to the park and bring blankets and social distance.
Could you
and
like
draw.
a picnic and
That'd be cool. Yeah.
you have to do that. Go draw together.
No.
Some social interaction.
Sounds good.
Yeah. I think that those are all my questions.
Fantastic. This is fun. I mean, it's good to just like chat with you guys too.
Yeah, it's been a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Well, all right, thanks for joining in, Max.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm honored to be the inaugural guest.
The first.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. You want to see it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'd love to see it.
I don't know how well it's
wow.
going to.
That's awesome. I love that. Dude, that's so good.
Yeah, I wanted to do a portrait and little moments from your story and stuff.
That's fantastic.
Well, thanks again for being like open and.
Yeah, this is great. It's fun to get deep. Like, when was the last time? You don't do this on Zooms all the time, right?
Yeah, I guess not.
To like really get to know each other. This is fun. Great interview. Good questions.
Thanks, man. There are some other ones, but I have to pee, so.
All right, man. Thanks again. Thanks so much, man.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good one.
You too.
Yeah.